Hello dear students of class 9th, welcome to geography class. I hope all of you are fit and healthy. Students, in this video, I shall be continuing with the 5th chapter from your geography book, that is Natural Vegetation and Wildlife. Students, in the previous video, I gave you an introduction about this chapter, explained you about virgin vegetation, and I was explaining about the factors that influence the natural vegetation of any place. In virgin vegetation, I told you that the vegetation that is left undisturbed, that is without human interference. So, the vegetation that grows without any human interference is called as virgin vegetation, which is also called as natural vegetation. Then I explained you about the factors that influence the vegetation and wildlife. I told you that there are basically two factors. The first one is relief and the second one is climate. So, in the previous video, I explained you about relief, in which I explained about two components of relief. First, land and the second, soil. So, both land and soil influences the vegetation of different places or any place. Now students, in this video, I shall be continuing with that topic and explaining you about the next component that influences the vegetation of any place. So, the next component that we are going to study is climate. Now students, this climate is not new to you because you have already studied about climate in your previous chapter, chapter number 4th, right. In the previous chapter, you studied about the elements of climate, you studied about the factors that are responsible for or that influence change in weather, right. So, students, here also climate plays a very important role and it really influences the vegetation, the natural vegetation of any place. Now, how climate influences the natural vegetation as well as wildlife of any place? So, we will understand this with the help of elements of climate. So, we are going to study about three major elements. The first one is temperature, the second one is photoperiod, which is called as sunlight, and the third one is precipitation, that means rainfall. So, first let us start with the first element of this, that is temperature. Now, students, not only temperature, but temperature along with humidity in the air, precipitation and soil influences the vegetation of an area. Definitely temperature plays a very important role, but only temperature cannot influence the vegetation of any area. It needs support, it needs help of the humidity that is present in the air, it needs help of the precipitation as well as the soil. Now, how? See, I will give you an ideal example through which you will be able to understand. Let me take example of South America. In South America, we have Atacama Desert as well as the Amazon forest. So, let us compare between both of them, alright. See, on one side we have Atacama Desert and on the other side we have Amazon forest. Now, see, the temperatures of both the places are almost the same because they are on the same latitude, and we will see that how the other factors along with temperature are responsible in determining or in influencing the vegetation of that place. If I talk about the Atacama Desert, then that is a barren land, that is basically a desert, right. And if I talk about this Amazon forest, then this is densely vegetated, right, densely vegetated, lot of greenery is there, but here you will hardly find any greenery in the Atacama Desert. This is one point. Now, the second point, see, I told you that temperature of both the places are almost the same. Now, students, let us talk about the next factor along with temperature, that is humidity in air. If I talk about the Atacama Desert, then there is very less humidity. But if I talk about the Amazon forest, then there is more humidity. Why? Because it is near to the equator, that is why it has more humidity because of rain. Next, let us talk about precipitation. Precipitation, then if I talk about the Atacama forest, again I am saying, if I talk about the Atacama desert, then precipitation is very less. It receives very less rainfall or almost no rainfall. But when we come to this Amazon forest, then it receives adequate amount of rainfall. More rainfall is there, as a result of which this is densely vegetated. It is very much green, right? And the last one, that is soil. See, the soil of Atacama desert is not fertile. It is not at all fertile. But if I talk about the soil of Amazon forest, then the soil is very much fertile, right? So, we can say that temperature along with these factors, that means humidity in the air, precipitation, soil, they really influence the vegetation of any place. Not only the vegetation, but also wildlife of any place. See, the vegetation as well as the wildlife, the animals that are found here will not be found in the Amazon forest, and the animals that are found in the Amazon forest will not be found in the Atacama desert. So, we can say that temperature really influences the vegetation and wildlife of any place. So, I hope the first element, that is temperature, is clear to everybody. Now, students, let us come to the next element of climate, that is photoperiod. Now, photoperiod means sunlight. That means how much sunlight a particular place, a particular area is receiving. According to that, the vegetation and wildlife of that place will be there. Because see, sunlight or sun is the ultimate source of energy on the earth. So, if a place will be receiving good amount of sunlight, direct sunlight, then that place will be densely vegetated as compared to the place that is not receiving adequate sunlight. Alright. So, according to the sunlight, the vegetation of that place will be there. Also, students, let me tell you that the vegetation Also, students, let me tell you that the variation in the amount of sunlight at different places depends on different factors. Now, we are going to study about 4 factors that determines the amount of sunlight in a particular area. The first is latitude, the second one is altitude, the third one is season, and the fourth one is duration of day. Now, first let us come to latitude. Alright. See, students, the latitudes that are receiving more sunlight, so those places will be densely vegetated. As I told you that sunlight or sun is the ultimate source of energy. So, if a place is receiving more amount of sunlight, that place will be more green, the vegetation will be dense of that place. But if I talk about the place that is receiving less sunlight, for example, the poles, then the vegetation of those places will not be as dense as the vegetation of the place that is near the equator. Understood? So, this is the first one, that is latitude. Now, let us come to the second factor or the second component of this, that is altitude. Now, what is the meaning of altitude? See, altitude means the height above the sea level. Alright, height above the sea level is called altitude. Now, how altitude affects the amount of sunlight received by any area? See, students, as we move to higher altitude from the earth's surface, the temperature decreases. It does not increase, it rather decreases. Now, you will say or you will think that the mountainous regions or the regions that are situated at a higher altitude, higher level, they will receive sunlight first. Definitely they will receive sunlight first. So, why the temperature decreases? Why temperature is not increased of that area as compared to several other places? So there are two reasons for this. So students, the first reason is, with increase in elevation, the atmospheric pressure falls, and with this the temperature also falls. All right. And the second reason is that the concentration of greenhouse gases like water vapor and carbon dioxide, they fall sharply, and so the heat absorption capacity also decreases. So that is why at a higher altitude the temperature decreases. Understood why the temperature decreases? Okay, so I hope you understood the second factor also. Now let's come to the third factor, that is season. See, in winter season the photo period decreases, but in summer season the photo period increases. That means in winter season the warmth of the sun is less as compared to the warmth in summer season, right? So in summer season you will see that the green, so in the summer season you will find greenery, you will find dense vegetation as compared to the winter season. All right. And the fourth factor, that is duration of day. Students, at a particular time when the earth is facing the sun, then the part that is not facing the sun remains dark. So the part that is facing the sun, the part of the earth that is facing the sun and that is receiving sunlight, so the temperature will be high as compared to the temperature of other part of the earth that is not receiving sunlight. So the part of the earth that is receiving sunlight, so there the vegetation will be dense, it will be more greenery there as compared to the part of the earth that is not receiving adequate amount of sunlight. You must have observed that during night most of the flowers, they do not bloom, but if I talk about day, with the sunshine the flowers start to bloom. All right. So these are the factors which are there in climate. So we can say that climate, so we can say that, no, cut this line. So students, the parts of the earth that are receiving longer duration of sunlight have dense vegetation as compared to the parts that are receiving sunlight for relatively shorter duration, as sun is the ultimate source of energy. So I hope that photo period is clear to everybody. Now students, as we completed this portion, there is a question that is given in your book. You can also see here the question is mentioned. The question is, why are the southern slopes in Himalayan region covered with thick vegetation cover as compared to northern slopes of the same hill? See, just now I explained you regarding the latitude and altitude. If I talk about the Himalayan region, you can see here there are three ranges of Himalayas. The first is Himadri, the first range is Himadri, the second range is Himachal, and the third range is Shivalik. All right. So the question is saying that the southern slope, that means the Shivalik range, that is covered with thick vegetation as compared to the northern slope, that is the Himadri. See, in the southern slope, or the southern slope is receiving more amount of sunlight. Why? Because it is near to the equator, and as we go towards higher altitude and latitude, the amount of sunlight received is relatively less. So the northern slope is basically covered with snow, that means Himadri is covered with snow. But if I talk about Shivalik, then Shivalik has huge vegetation, it has dense vegetation because of the amount of sunlight that is received by this range. I hope it is clear to everybody that why this is so, why the difference in vegetation is there. So students, I hope photo period is clear to everybody. Now students, let's come to the third element of climate, that is precipitation. Precipitation means rainfall. See, how rainfall influences the vegetation and wildlife of any place. Areas that are receiving heavy rainfall, they have more dense vegetation as compared to the areas that are receiving less rainfall. For example, in the deserts, the plants are scattered. Vegetation is not very thick, it is not dense, they are scattered. If one is here, then the other will be like 1 kilometer away, that type. But if I talk about the other place that is receiving more amount of rainfall, then you will see that vegetation cover is very thick, it is very dense, right? So rainfall also influences vegetation of any area. Understood? Now students, based on this, we have one question that is given in the book. So as you can see here, the question is, why are the western slopes of the Western Ghats covered with thick forests and not the eastern slopes? As you can see the map of India, this is the Western Ghat. The question is saying that why are the western slopes of Western Ghat? This is the western slope of Western Ghat. This is covered with thick forest. Why this is so? Because this area receives high amount of rainfall as compared to the this is so because this area receives high amount of rainfall as compared to the eastern slope. This is the eastern slope, so this is receiving relatively less rainfall as compared to the western slope. So we can say that rainfall also affects the vegetation of any place. So I hope till here points are clear to everybody. You understood the factors that are important or that influences the vegetation of any place, of any area. Students, in the next video, I shall be explaining you about the importance of forest. We are studying about dense vegetation. Dense vegetation means a large number of trees are there, they are situated at a place, that means forest. So we will see about the importance of forests. Why are forests so important? What benefits the forests are providing to us? Alright. So students, thank you so much for listening to this video. I hope the points are clear to everybody. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, thank you so much. Stay connected and revise your lessons well. Thank you.